Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, where it is finally happening. It is coming, the Corpulent Cadaver nerf that has really been completely defining Hydra Clash, letting people do way more damage than any other team possible. The nerf is coming, and we're getting full details of that next week. Something we actually heard from the Raid Digest yesterday. We're going to go through this, pick out some of the big bits of news. I'm going to talk about some of the champions to look at, and the strategies to look at that are going to be really strong once the Corpulent Cadaver nerf comes in. What's the new meta for Hydra Clash going to be? Excuse me. And I'm also going to be very unpopular in this video. I'm going to mention a few champions that I think actually should also get nerfs. Oh, it's a risky one. The raid player base, for whatever reason, I think it's because it takes so long really to build up champions and invest in them, but the raid player base is one of the most fanatically opposed to nerfs and balancing in general that I've ever seen in any game. But I'm not. I'm actually, as you guys know, I'm much more in favor of more regular buffs and more regular nerfs to give everyone like a good playing field, a good place to be in the game. So there's not like champions that completely dominate and champions that are completely useless. I think both are bad. But anyway, let's take a quick look first at this Raid Digest before we get unpopular. So first of all, interestingly enough, there are some adjustments coming to clan versus clan. Next clan versus clan, by the way, is, I think they say it here somewhere. I think there is going to be another clan versus clan on Tuesday and Wednesday, which is when we're going to be expecting to fuse up Bambus. Do they say it here? Actually, maybe they don't, but I think... No, never mind. Here we go. Yes, which will feature personal rewards. So yeah, that is Tuesday, Wednesday, the 10th to the 12th of October. And yeah, it's going to have personal rewards. So I'm going to do a big stream for that. We're going to be going pretty hard. Obviously, we will be fusing up Bambus there and trying to get over 400,000 points. So stay tuned for that live stream. But the adjustments that are going to apply after this one, I think is probably good on the whole, actually. They're going to start counting clans' points as a sum of individual players' CVC points that are currently in the clan. So entering or leaving clans for the sake of facing a less challenging opponent in tier manipulation would be less of an option. I think this is a good change. So basically what you could do at the moment is, especially if you've got two clans, let's say you've got, I don't know, we have, let's imagine hypothetically that we had like Sinrath 1 and Sinrath 2. And what we could do if we wanted would be to, we do one big clan versus clan fight in Sinrath 1. Then the next time around, we just all leave this clan, jump into Sinrath 2 instead, and again, smash a really easy opponent. Sinrath 1 does really badly. They get a really easy opponent next time. We jump back. So basically, our players are always maxing out their personal rewards and getting everything good. But they're always just hopping between clans. So the players are always winning, but the clan necessarily isn't. It's something you could do. I don't know if anyone would really bother to do it to that extent, but it's something you could, in theory, do. This is going to stop that. It's going to say, okay, whatever you scored in the previous clan versus clan is going to add up. It's just going to take all the players currently in the clan. Now, this is interesting because it, of course, means if anyone leaves a clan, if a new player comes into a clan, it's going to actually adjust the clan versus clan matchmaking. So whereas right now, you can totally manipulate it, and you can say, okay, if we end in position 49, we're going to be facing whoever is in position 50, right? Those two are nearly always going to be matched up against each other. So we can manipulate clan versus clan that way. Well, seeing as now people are going to be able to switch clans, and it's going to move the clan positioning in the leaderboard, and you can't see that, and obviously can't control it, it's going to mean that there's going to be much less manipulation to get the specific opponents that you want. I think there will still be manipulation. You can still obviously generally shoot for a low score or a high score. But yeah, I think it's a good change overall. I think clan versus clan, I'll be honest, our clan, we exploit the matchmaking because why wouldn't you exploit the matchmaking? I think that being less of an option, though, is better for the game. So yeah, that's a good change, I think. Also interesting here, clan leaders are going to be able to set minimum point requirements to collect CVC rewards. The only people who actively contribute to victory get properly rewarded. So you can set it to whatever you want, which is kind of crazy. The decision is completely up to your clan leader. We hope you entrusted power to the right person. So man, this one is wacky. I don't know. you could come in and say, okay, only people who score 200,000 points this CVC get any rewards at all. I feel like this is generally a pretty bad change. I think this is kind of dodgy. Let me know what you think about this one. But I think this has a lot of potential for abuse. Yeah, I think this sort of benefits Plarium and nobody else is sort of my vibe on that one. I don't know, maybe you guys are struggling. Maybe people genuinely are struggling in clans and you're very frequently having just freeloaders and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, so there you go. There we go. Okay, cool. Other changes. So here are some of the pretty big ones. I think this is a great change. This is really nice. Quality of life optimization. So you can turn off pop-ups that appear in the tavern when disposing of champions that participate in fusions. And this option is set for each champion individually. And more quality of life changes are coming. This is great. I think improving the tavern has been a really highly requested thing. I mean, there have been a bunch of improvements to the tavern before. They've been continuously very, very well received. But people want more, and I think rightly so. More tavern improvements would be really good. I think the main thing here is because it's set individually by champion, it means that when a new fusion starts, you're still going to have like properly working fusion markers on all of like the rares and epics or whatever goes into a fusion, so they'll still be protected. But I can like come in and I can mark all these rares, I can mark all these uncommons as I don't care about whatever he's called brute. Just feed him. Like, I don't give a damn. Like, so I can just get rid of these and not have to worry anymore, which I think is great because it is really annoying clicking through stuff in the tavern and every time, because you're getting these uncommons all the time from green shards, and every time you're trying to feed them, you have to click twice. It's carpal tunnel syndrome. So getting rid of that, I think is great. I mean, tweaks and fixes to Emic Trunkart's passive and the accelerated animation of Shamail's A2. That's nice. I honestly think speeding up Shamail's A1 animation would be a good call, so hopefully that's something they could do eventually. Good to see Emic's stuff being fixed, though. And then, here's the big one. On this note, the digest is coming to an end, as well as the era of dominance of some undead person who bullied Hydra with ludicrously high amounts of damage long enough. More info about the technicalities of that change is coming next week. Stay tuned. So it is possible that they could give us the info next week and fix it next week. I think that's possible. It could also be they give us the info next week and then they fix it maybe a week or two after, whenever they do a new patch with like the next fusion, like the Halloween fusion. So certainly I'd say it's probably coming within 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. And we'll definitely hear about it next week. It could be happening as early as next week. Certainly it's not obviously going to affect the current Hydra clash. It might affect the next one or whatever. So that's a pretty big change. Obviously, in case you don't know, the change, I'm assuming everyone does, but the change is going to be, and the one they're mentioning, is Corpulent Cadaver. Rare champion, very simple. His damage is 30% of the value of a shield on him. It's very simple. He just does additional damage. This damage cannot weak hit. This damage is not reduced by the Hydra passives, which reduce damage taken. So, for example, when a head freshly spawns in, they normally have like, what? I don't know, 85, 90% damage reduction or something on a fresh head. He ignores that completely. Just I don't know why. He just does. Can't weak hit. Does the full damage to everything, etc. And you can obviously scale this up to do totally insane numbers. So to give you one example, I think this is the current record. I think, which is Doc Moreau. I think he just overtook Victor Tez with, I don't even know, like how much damage. It's an absurd amount of damage. So much damage that it becomes actually almost illegible. You're like, wait, is that like billions or trillions or millions? Like, I don't even know anymore. It's a crazy, crazy amount of damage. And yeah, so that's basically what is being nerfed. You're not going to be able to do this. Now, what are going to be the meta? And also, some things I think should be nerfed as well. I actually think a couple of things that should be nerfed are immediately visible already in this particular run. So number one, I have this champion, but I don't have two of them. And I think that is where the nerf should come. I really think it's important that they nerf Yumiko. I do. The problem with Yumiko right now is that Dance of Time, I believe that 2 Yumikos can reset each other, right? So Yumiko 1 does Dance of Time. When Yumiko 2 does Dance of Time, it reduces the 5-turn cooldown on this one down to a 2-turn cooldown for the first Yumiko. And then vice versa. So they just keep bouncing back and forth and have a super short cooldown of that because they keep resetting each other. I think that really needs to change. Like, so for example, with I think the other example of a champ that resets cooldown, Prince Kaimar, Seal of Magic, you cannot reduce the cooldown of Seal of Magic. It is immune to cooldown reduction and resetting effects. I think that is what needs to happen with Yumiko because it is too broken. And the problem is that, yeah, sure, you remove Cadaver and you remove this infinitely building shield with Brogni. When you take that out of the picture, yeah, you're not going to have a team anywhere near as strong as this, but you will still have really broken teams continuously coming up that are going to exploit double Yumiko. And that's just not, it's not good for the game. This is a Void Legend, one of the most desirable Void Legendaries, one of the most wanted Void Legendaries in the game. There's very few players that actually have two of this champion, right? Very few players. And those players are just going to absolutely destroy most other people, and there's going to be nothing we can do about it. So I think that it's got to be good. It's just good for the game long term for that to be fixed. This is just asking for more kind of exploit style teams in the future. It is. So I think that's something that needs to change. I think another thing that needs to change, and I don't think that even if you nerf that with her, she's still OP. So it's not a massive problem, really. It just breaks the double Yumiko thing, which is silly. I think Trunda, this is the champion to look towards, probably run with, again, double Yumiko. Presuming they just nerf Cadaver next week, probably double Yumiko with Trunda is going to be the next overpowered thing, where you just keep reducing the cooldowns, specifically over Cloak of Ages. That is likely to be the next big thing, so she just keeps spamming Cloak of Ages multiple times. It'll be the new Cadaver-style strategy that is going to completely dominate lower levels of the game. Basically what happens is that this move is effectively bugged, attacks one enemies, then attacks all other enemies with the second hit, doing 60% of the damage. What actually happens, it does the full damage, it takes 60% of that, but then it multiplies it by your crit damage again. Crit damage multiplier applies once again. The book multipliers apply again. Mastery multipliers apply again. I think it might even multiply it by an attack multiplier again, or something like that. Like, it does something crazy. Essentially, instead of doing 60% of the damage, it doesn't do that. It does 60% of the damage multiplied by a whole bunch of massive things. Like, you could multiply it by another 300% from her crit damage, and that gets absurd. I think it will apply like decapitated Hydra damage couple of times as well and stuff. It's really silly. This does way too much. I honestly think this move should be nerfed as well. They should finally come back and bug fix it. I remember, like, before I was a content creator, like 2.5 years ago maybe, Hell Hades did a video saying that they should nerf Trunda back then. It was bugged back then, and he got so much hate for that. Like, people absolutely hated him. And I mean, I was watching from the sideline going, I mean, why not? Like, it's clearly bugged back. This was before Hydra or anything. It was just really strong in Arena. I think, again, this should be fixed. Now, you could make it stronger. You could have it do 200% of the damage from the first hit. I don't really care, honestly. I think it just needs to be bug fixed so it's not as ridiculous as it actually is, because it is really ridiculous. It's just something we've not seen because Cadaver has been the dominant thing. But I think once Cadaver goes, Trunda becomes the new dominant thing that nobody can keep up with. Trunda double Yumiko, which I think is, again, it's just really bad. So yeah, either, I don't know what you could do. You could reduce her cooldowns. I don't know. You could, again, up the damage of this, but fix the bug. Whatever. I think there's lots of things you can do. I still want Trunda to be really good. I think people still love Trunda. She's an iconic champ in the game. I think that's totally fine. But I think this move is too ridiculously bugged to make sense. So it should be fixed. That's my honest opinion. Unfortunately, is that it should be nerfed. Speaking of another nerf, which is not to do with Hydra, though he is really good for Hydra, I'd definitely be looking to nerf Taras. I think it's time Taras gets nerfed as well, guys. Marishka, I think potentially should be... Oh, it doesn't want me to go to the right. Okay. I think Marishka should potentially be nerfed as well. I think she's not as OP. I'd say potentially you could nerf her passive a bit, like give this a cooldown. I think that would not be unfair, but I'm not an expert on that. I certainly think Taras definitely needs a nerf. I think he's just so much better than every other damage dealer in the game, specifically for Arena, that it is just ridiculous. I think probably the areas would be to fix his passives. Like, I think nerfing these down a bit. Like, just taking half damage from skills is ridiculous. Or the fact, there should be a counterplay in his kit. When you damage him, it reduces his max HP. His damage is based on HP. It should reduce his damage. I believe that is what happens for literally every other HP-based champion in the game. If you reduce or increase their max HP, which, by the way, that's a new thing come into the game with this guy, who I think isn't probably very good, but he can permanently, per round, increase allies' max HP, which we've never had before. That would not up Taris's damage. Taris's damage scales off of his base max HP. Unlike, like I said, I believe every other single HP-based champ in the game, which means that even when you decrease his HP by hurting him, and which, you know, destroys some of his max HP, decreases it like semi-permanently, as it were, it doesn't reduce his damage, which is silly. So there's a lot you could do. I think that poise is probably the big thing I would target. I'm not expert enough. I don't have the champion, and I'm not at the level of arena where I ever really fight the champion. So this is more of like an abstract thing for me. This is not something I really run into, but it's so obvious looking at even some of that stuff, how far beyond he is. I love to see that nerfed. I think like that, even the passive of this is probably a bit too strong. There's just a lot in this champ, honestly, in my opinion, that is too strong. I think he definitely, it's about time for this duo to be tuned down. So they'd be like 5 champions I would definitely be looking at right now that they need a balance pass to reduce their capabilities. Cadaver, it's coming. That's great. But double Yumiko, specifically double Yumiko, single Yumiko is fine. Double Yumiko is broken. Trunda's A2, that's definitely broken, and so on. So yeah, like those are the things, by the way, these are the things you should exploit for Hydra right now. Like if I come into Hydra hard, we find in my clan right now what the best team, okay, we actually don't have any like particularly good keys on hard that aren't using Cadaver. After Cadaver comps, like you're jumping down from like 1,500 mil, so 1.5 billion to about 500 billion. That's where like Acrisius start coming into it, Grazor starts coming into it, Newt starts coming in. These types of champions become much more powerful. I'm actually curious, Harima actually doing more damage than Newt. That's pretty cool. I know you guys were telling me that you're actually loving Harima and Hydra. That actually shows it right there, out damaging Newt. That's very impressive. So Harima actually probably quite underrated for Hydra. But these are the sort of champs that you are going to want to be looking at. Supreme Galek as well. I think, you know, that sort of makes sense. Again, I'm saying that I do not have Acrisia. I do not have Grazor. That doesn't bother me. It used to bother me, honestly, a bit that Acrisia is so much better. But I've kind of accepted it somewhat now. I think Newt coming in, especially, has, you know, moderated that a little bit, giving us more options to compete at a reasonable level. Like up here, like here we've got a Newt and Grazor key that's beating Acrisia, you know? For example, here's another Newt. Like to put in context, Newt, like he's obviously not doing anywhere near as much as Acrisia, but he's doing good. So I think that's fine. But they're sort of generally the areas you're going to look. You can see that no one is really doing Trunda keys. It's all Cadaver right now. But yeah, Trunda will take over as the next big thing. Yeah, I'll obviously bring you some keys myself and some teams myself when that happens. Honestly, there's been really no motivation for me to do any real guides on Hydra Clash because it's been totally irrelevant. Like, if you don't build a Cadaver team, your key is basically where, like, certainly endgame. I guess if you're earlier in the game, which is probably most people, you know, you don't have the double Yumikos and you don't have the gear to really make Cadaver pop off. But, like, for me, I could maybe best case do, you know, 200 million, maybe 300 million. Like, it's more than 10 times. It's almost 20 times the amount of damage I could do, you know? And this is a 1 Yumiko team. A 1 Yumiko team can do 20 times what I could possibly do with a normal key. It's like, you know, you could have a whole clan of me and 1 key can beat it. So it's like, what's the point? There's not much point in doing that guide. It's quite worthless. Those guides will become much more valuable and relevant to people once Cadaver has changed. So that's good. But I think there's still going to be exploits coming in. So I really do want to see some nerfs. Anyway, guys, that is what I think about that. I will see you. Obviously, got videos up on the weekend and videos on Monday. And then we've got the stream for CBC Personal Rewards on Tuesday. So I will see you for that. We'll be going hard, getting our Bambus. And yeah, figuring some stuff out there. Maybe we can build up some more champs potentially for new Hydra teams. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Catch you all next time. Goodbye.